Call this meeting to order. Today's date is June 13th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilman Hache.
Here.
Councilman Seaton.
Here.
Councilman Voigt.
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh.
Here.
And Mayor Newton.
Here. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us in a moment of silence for our men and women serving our nation and our first responders. Thank you. I move the bills, claims, and vouchers. Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I move the bills, claims, and vouchers and statements of funds on hand as of May 31st, 2018 be accepted as submitted.
Second.
Hache.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Voigt.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. I move that the Village Council meetings minutes of February 7th, March 16th, March 26th, March 29th, April 25th, and May 23rd of 2018, having been reviewed by the Village Council and now available in the Village Clerk's office, be approved as submitted.
Second. Hache.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Voigt.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. We have two proclamations this evening. The first one is a recognition of the 60th anniversary of the Cashel Memorial Shell, and Councilman Voigt will be reading that.
Thank you. Whereas the Village of Ridgewood has a long tradition of supporting the arts, and the Cashel Memorial Shell, located on Veterans Field, is dedicated to and enjoyed by many as a place where summer programs of fine music and related artistic and cultural endeavors may be presented to the community in a setting of natural beauty. And whereas the Cashel Memorial Shell was built through fundraising efforts of the Ridgewood Chorale and the Orpheus Club by holding concerts over 11 years, raising $35,000 for the construction. And whereas the Cashel Memorial Shell was erected and donated as a gift to the Village of Ridgewood in memory of Frank Cashel, a widely recognized chorale conductor, organist, teacher, and longtime director of the Ridgewood Chorale and the Orpheus Club. And whereas on June 17, 1958, the gift of the Cashel Memorial Shell was presented to Mayor Robert Olson by Marion Faber, chair of the Cashel Committee, and the first performance was held with over 3,500 in attendance. Performers included the Ridgewood Chorale, the Orpheus Club, and a naval band. Whereas over the years, performances have included Tunes in June, the Ridgewood Chorale, and the Orpheus Club, who performed a musical review with skits and refreshments being sold, the Ridgewood Band, a barbershop quartet, and Sweet Adelines, the Philharmonic Society of Northern New Jersey, silent movies from the Museum of Modern Art, and an annual fashion show sponsored by Seal Funds. And whereas the Cashel Memorial Shell and equipment are maintained by the Village of Ridgewood, and the Cashel Memorial Shell Committee arranges the summer concerts, solicits sponsors, arranges for printing and publicity in conjunction with the Ridgewood Parks and Recreation Department. And whereas on June 14, 2018, the Ridgewood Chorale will once again perform to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Cashel Memorial Shell and the 90th anniversary of the Ridgewood Chorale. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby recognize 60 years of free entertainment under the stars at the Cashel Memorial Shell. And be it further resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood expresses its gratitude to the Cashel Memorial Shell Committee and the Ridgewood Parks and Recreation Department for continuing the tradition of the arts in Ridgewood by continuing to bring free musical entertainment throughout the summer season for the enjoyment of all.
Thank you. And we have a second proclamation, Bee City USA and National Pollinator Week, and the Deputy Mayor will be reading that one.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas pollinator species such as thousands of species of bees are essential partners in producing much of our food supply, And whereas pollinator species provide significant environmental benefits that are necessary for maintaining healthy, diverse urban and suburban ecosystems. And whereas pollination plays a vital role for the trees and plants of our community, enhancing our quality of life and creating recreational and economic development opportunities. Whereas for decades, the Village of Ridgewood has managed urban landscapes and public lands that include many municipal parks and greenways, as well as wildlife habitats. And whereas the Village of Ridgewood provides recommendations to developers and residents regarding landscaping to promote wise conservation stewardship, including the protection of pollinators and maintenance of their habitat in urban and suburban environments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby proclaim the third week of June as the Village of Ridgewood's observance of National Pollinator Week, and the Village of Ridgewood as an affiliate of Bee City USA, and urges all citizens to recognize this observance.
Great, very good, thank you. So I'm going to go to public comment. If you just want to start, maybe we have representatives from Cashel Shell, if you want to come on up and just talk a little bit about the programming, and we have B City if you want to come up after. So come on up, Joe, you want to just speak about, and we actually owe a debt of gratitude for all of your hard work.
I think Michael probably covered everything that I could possibly
Could you just,
But thank you.
Joe, could you just hit the button that'll turn on the green light so we can hear you?
This?
Yes.
Turn it up.
It is on green? Okay, just bring it closer.
Joe,
Yeah,
just
it
pull
should
the-
be green.
Is it all right
And
now?
just pull that microphone just down a little so we can hear you.
Maybe I could grow a couple of inches throw in
Okay,
here.
now you're on
That'd be helpful.
stage. You're good.
It's a wonderful program. We will be having concerts Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Hopefully, we will see your smiling faces there. One of the evenings, or many of the evenings, we try very hard to introduce all types of music, and we encourage the town to come, and we appreciate the businesses that support us, and it gets more and more difficult to do that because there is so much need out there. But music is what is so important in all our lives. And again, thank you so much for the recognition from all of the committee members. We really, really do appreciate it, and looking forward to tomorrow evening. Thank you.
And we thank you and the committee for all your hard work to make this possible for our community to enjoy. So thank you. Frank, come on up. And your B. And our B.
I'm going to hold you up, okay?
So I just wanted to say thank you for the proclamation. I have our flyer of all the events that we're going to do next week, because it's really been great because the village has pulled together to do so many things for pollinators. And I'd like to thank the Ridgewood Parks and Rec Department, the Ridgewood Library, the Ridgewood Shade Tree Commission, the Health Barn, the Women Gardeners, the Conservancy of Ridgewood Public Lands, the Native Plant Society of New Jersey, Bookends Bookstore, Rossler's Nursery, New Jersey Audubon Society, and of course the Northeast New Jersey Beekeepers, because all of them are participating in this. So by everything that you've done, you've made Ridgewood the example that all the other municipalities in the state are looking towards, and they're jealous because we're so great. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And it's okay if we bring these up to...
Oh, sure, come on up.
Come on, now we're going to go.
That one mine? Right here. Thanks.
Thank
It's
you.
like our favorite B.
Thank you very much.
Great job. Thanks, Frank. All right, public comment. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Hallaby, 374 Evergreen Place, and I'm also president of the Conservancy for Ridgewood Public Lands.
Could you just move the microphone up so we can
Okay.
hear you? Thank
Is that
you,
better?
Cynthia. That's better, much better.
I'm here to follow up on my appearance on May 23rd at the council meeting in reference to the train station plaza. At Candidates Night, I heard both the mayor and the deputy mayor state that they would be increasing the parking at the train station. For those who do not know, this would entail the destruction of a 38-foot wide grassy area and the cutting down of 7 mature trees, leaving us with a 9-foot strip. 4 feet of that would be a walkway. Since this topic has not been included on any council agenda since last summer, I wanted to find out the true status of this project. I also wanted to know whether the area is listed on the Recreation Open Space Inventory, and when the council would be opening this up for public hearing. Since I was speaking during the public comment period, the mayor told me I was not allowed to ask questions, even though other residents did receive answers during their public comments. After the meeting on May 23rd, I emailed my questions to the entire council, Mr. Rogers and Ms. Maylander. Only Mr. Voigt responded to me about the Rossi designation. On May 28th, still not having received a reply, I emailed Mr. Rogers and Ms. Maylander with CCs to the board, asking them how I should obtain answers to my questions. Mr. Rogers responded by telling me to go through the clerk or the manager's office. I then wrote to set up a brief meeting with Ms. Maylander, but I never heard back. I find it very strange that no one other than Mr. Voigt and Mr. Rogers finds it important to address my questions. Since the mayor refuses to answer me, are other council members and the village manager not allowed a voice? I still would like to know whether this project remains under discussion, or if it is not. If it is not, if it is, I would request that you put it on an upcoming agenda so that the public knows what you have in mind for the train station plaza.
Thank you.
When will I get an answer to my questions?
Okay, thank you.
When will I get an answer to my questions? I email you, I speak to you,
Cynthia,
I get no response.
Point of order, I just suggest that you follow.
Don't tell me point of order, Mayor, please. Just please tell me
Cynthia,
what I should do
Cynthia.
to get an answer.
Well, you can follow agendas, and when it's on an agenda, you can attend a meeting
And in the
follow up.
meantime, will you be working on destroying that area?
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. Good evening.
Good evening. Gregory Brown, 444 Linwood Ave here in Ridgewood. Just two comments, I guess. The first is, with all of the discussion that's going on with the garage, I kind of wanted to bring up my idea again as you sort of look at funding and you look at maybe increasing the, the hourly sort of rates and all that. The idea of sort of taking out the meters and putting in more kiosks. I know that there's a cost associated with that, but hopefully it would generate revenue that would help sort of fund things, not only would cut down on people pulling in the spaces and, already having time on meters. They'd have to, hopefully would do that. And the second is, I always ask about, it's summertime, which means Ridgewood water, and the status of similar restrictions on water in the other towns that are serviced by Ridgewood water, and how we can kind of work to make sure that there's sort of the even playing field between all of the municipalities that Ridgewood water serves, So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Excuse me. Good evening.
Good evening. Rick Holloway. I suggest that the council get together under the leadership of Mr. Rogers to come up with a consistent set of rules. You cannot have the mayor answer some questions and not others. Somehow she answers questions to her friends and refuses to answer questions of her perceived enemies. This is ridiculous. You either have to be consistent one way or another. Thank you.
Anyone else? Moving on.
Next item is the manager's report. I just want to remind everyone the next village council work session scheduled for June 20th has been canceled. The next village council regular work session will be held on July 11th. There will be a special public village council meeting on June 25th at 7 p.m. to continue the public hearing on the water rate ordinance increases. Sunday, July 1st at noon is the village council reorganization meeting. Everyone is invited to attend. Water conservation reminders, watering is allowed for odd-numbered houses on Tuesday and Saturday. On even-numbered houses, watering is allowed on Wednesdays and Sundays. A smart controller is a weather-based system that controls watering. Using this system, you may water any day between the hours of midnight to 10 a.m. Graden Pool is open weekdays noon to 7:30 p.m. and weekends 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Registration is through Community Pass or at the badge office during pool hours. Further details are on the village's website. The Ridgewood Guild's Music in the Night, live free outdoor entertainment every Friday night throughout the Central Business District. The Castro Memorial Shell every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. through the beginning of August. Bring a chair or blanket to enjoy a wide variety of free live music under the stars. As mentioned in the proclamation, tomorrow night is the big anniversary celebration, 60 years of music at the Cashel Memorial Shell, and 90 years of music for the Ridgewood Chorale, who will be performing. Movies in the park, the Ridgewood Guild sponsors free outdoor movies in Memorial Park at Bennett Square every other Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Tonight is Kucha from the Black Lagoon. June 27th is Big. This is the 30th anniversary of this movie where Tom Hanks won his first Oscar nomination. Other films in this series are La La Land, Toy Story, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Planet of the Apes. Ridgewood Walks is sponsoring several walking tours during the month of June. Each walk has a different theme, such as iconic buildings in Ridgewood, some on the National Registry of Historic Places, arts and architecture of various unique buildings in Ridgewood, a pizza, french fry, and ice cream tour in the Central Business District, a me time tour to help you unwind, a hike along the Dunham Trail, and a bike ride around Ridgewood. You can register for these tours at ridgewoodwalks.com. July 4th festivities, there's a flag raising at 9 a.m. at the train station. The parade is 10 a.m. rain or shine, and fireworks at approximately 9 p.m. The rain date for that is July 5th, and I'm sure Mayor Knutson will have an update on another exciting occurrence for the July 4th committee in her council reports. I want to remind everyone that all village offices will be closed on July 4th in observance of Independence Day. There will be no recycling or garbage pickup, and the recycling center will also be closed. Graden Pool will also close early on that day. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Voigt?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Saturday, I attended an Eagle Scout Court of Honor for James Schimmel. It was the 6th one this year in the past several weeks, so it's good to see that we have young leaders stepping up and taking the highest honor they can in Boy Scouting. On Sunday, I had the honor of attending an iftar by the Muslim community of Ridgewood, hosted at St. Elizabeth's Church. It was a beautiful ceremony that started with a prayer for breaking the fast of Ramadan at 8:15, and we had a lot of good food and some good conversation, and it was a great event to attend. And then the Shade Tree Commission met last night, and the Shade Tree Commission is humming along. There's a lot of stuff coming out. The topic of discussion, the Graden tree replacement, has come down to a decision between either another sycamore tree or perhaps a blight-resistant American elm, and our arborist is doing a little bit more research, and we should have a presentation, I believe, in July with the recommendation from the Shade Tree Commission as to what to replace with what tree species to put on that island, and it should be planted this fall. Also discussed at Shade Tree was the nursery. We have a small tree nursery on the side of the Parks building over at the recycling center. There are about 125 trees in their second year. They're thriving, and hopefully it'll be moved to a more permanent location once that's been established. And that's about everything. Thank you.
Councilman Walsh?
I don't really have anything to report. CSAC is having their meeting on June 21st, but I just wanted to mention, I know we talked about it at the last meeting and we're going to talk about it this evening, but I happened to be in the CBD waiting for my husband and my son while they were in Rite Aid, and I kind of stood out on Ridgewood Avenue and watched some really bad driving, some really bad illegal parking, some really bad pedestrians, and I took several pictures and sent them to the village manager because it was as if no one cared. There were trucks parked illegally, people leaving cars, and I know that the Ridgewood Police Department was in town. I'm curious as to who got tickets and who didn't, because some of the trucks were left there for 30 minutes illegally, and I did see the officers in town, but subsequently there were residents who were posting on social media that they also were observing the same thing. So, you know, this does relate to safety, it does relate to enforcement, it does relate to just, you know, being a good neighbor. So I think it's something that we really have to keep our eye on, because it was dangerous at a minimum, but at a, you know, it really was a bad situation, and, you know, we all have to get along together. So something's got to get better.
Great. Councilman Hache.
Just wanted to report the Chamber of Commerce held its 91st annual recognition and installation dinner last night at Park West Loft. The co-honorees were the CBD Advisory Committee and the Tobacco Shop, receiving the Community Service Award. It was a great event, very well attended. The new slate of officers was sworn in by Mayor Knudsen. Scott Leaf was sworn in as the new president of the chamber. Scott, if you don't know him, he's no stranger to town and to the business district here. He served as chamber president before, has served on the board in other capacities as well, and is also a mortgage professional in town. So I'd like to wish Scott and the rest of the new members of the chamber the best of luck.
Great. Thank you. And so I'll just continue on that, and I agree. Congratulations to Scott. I know the chamber has great new leadership, dedicated, and loves the village, loves the Central Business District, longtime resident, and very capable. And congratulations to the CBD Advisory Committee for that recognition. It was really quite lovely that everyone attended and was there to receive that award. So it was great work, and so congratulations to you guys as well. Friday was the Ridgewood Public Library ESL Library Luncheon, hosted by Friends of the Library. It's a really amazing program. 34 countries were represented with 128 students and 48 volunteer tutors that worked with those students to help them with their English. And it's just a magnificent luncheon, but it's a really, really terrific program with people that dedicate their time to helping others. So congratulations to everyone who graduated and got their certificate, and hopefully they'll continue and will be wonderful members of our community. The Mayor's Fairlawn Ridgewood Mayor's Weight Loss Challenge, the recognition and awards were held Monday evening, and that was a cumulative weight loss of all the participants of 414 pounds. So everyone really worked hard. They see their nutritionist regularly. They have started to exercise and pay attention to what they're eating and are living a much healthier lifestyle. And so this is really exciting for a lot of people. This is a new lease on life for many who previously, actually for some people, were actually unable to walk. And so it's an incredible journey for so many. It's an emotional journey. And congratulations to everyone for that weight loss. 414 pounds. I think we beat everyone. The Garage Design Open House was held Monday evening. We had some residents attend, and we thank Epic for their attendance and helping out. And, Cash Out Shell last night, the high school students, Ridgewood High School students, Art Beat was an amazing, amazing program. The students put on not just, they had some a cappella, we had some rock bands, and I may have missed that first act, and a lot of visual arts. So it was really amazing, and congratulations to the student. This is a student-run program. The kids organize everything. They put the acts together. They make certain they have the shell. They do everything they're supposed to do. They have the lighting. They have the sound system. They do everything start to finish. These are high school students, and it was an amazing program. So congratulations to the kids who managed to pull that off for a second year in a row, and ArtBeat 2019 will happen again in June next year. So with that, we are moving on.
Did you want to mention about July 4th and their 50-50?
Oh, yes, okay, oh, sorry. So, The July 4th committee, thank you for reminding me, we have a little thing about 50/50 raffles. The July 4th committee is selling 50/50 raffles. There is hopefully a total of 600 raffle tickets will be sold for $100 each for a grand prize of $25,000 if all of those 600 tickets are sold, and then it will be an additional 10 $500 prizes. And this actually is a really great opportunity to help keep this tradition alive. We can go on the July4th.org website, or just Google Ridgewood 4th of July, and you can see the locations that they'll be selling the tickets, but I know it's going to be at Parkwood Deli on the weekends. $100 a person. It's a really great opportunity to win, and it's also an opportunity to help support this program. Fewer and fewer donors are coming forward. Our donations are down, costs are up. It costs because we have a lot of security, police, bomb sniffing dogs. We have to have bag checks at the entry, so the costs have really escalated over the past years. And so in order to make ends meet and get this really a wonderful program and the fireworks to be exactly what we expect, we are hoping that everyone will not only purchase tickets to the fireworks, but also stop by and pick up a ticket for the 50/50, and maybe one of you right here will win, maybe one of us, who knows? Okay, so go on the website, Ridgewood 4th of July, and take a look at where those tickets will be sold. Very good, thank you.
Okay.
Now we're moving on.
Okay, so there are no ordinances for Ridgewood Water resolution. There is one. The following resolution, numbered 18-169, will be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the village council. It will be read by title only. Award professional services contract, water rate study, additional funding.
So moved.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. I move the clerk read ordinance 3639 by title on second reading and the public hearing thereon be open.
Second?
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3639?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 212 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Parks and Recreation Areas, at Article 10, Section 212-31, skate park use rules and regulations.
The public hearing is now open. I move the public hearing be closed.
Second?
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3639 be adopted on second reading and final publication is required by law.
Second?
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. I move the clerk read ordinance 3646 by title on second reading and the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3646?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic, at Section 265-29, Parking Meter Zones Designated, and at Section 265-72, Schedule 22, Loading Zones. This is regarding valet parking area on North Broad Street. I just do want to mention that Glenn Carlo, the owner of Steel Wheel Tavern, who is the owner who wishes to have the valet parking for this ordinance, is here this evening.
Okay, great.
Okay.
The public hearing is now open.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I recall that there was some discussion about this during the work session that was held last week, and I'd like to make two comments about that discussion. One was that a member of the council raised a concern that because we had previously allowed valet parking for other restaurants, there may be an obligation on the council's part to allow it in this case. That comment was made, however, no opinion was offered by the village attorney as to whether there is any obligation on the council's part to offer valet parking to any restaurant or any business that applies for it. Personally, I don't think there is, and I will use the example that when it comes to variances, Mr. Brown just left, he's on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. people seem to come in all the time to the Zoning Board of Adjustment and say that my neighbor got a variance and therefore I am entitled to a variance. I don't believe there is an entitlement to this sort of thing, and I don't believe that the council has any obligation just because you've done it in the past that you have to do it again. I think these need to be treated on a case-by-case basis. In this case, there is concern, at least I believe by 2 council members, that the location that is proposed for this is relatively dangerous. Now, Mr. Rudeshauser was here at the last meeting and indicated that he believes that once the valets pick up the car, they're going to be making a right turn and parking at some place. However, that someplace was not identified, and I'm wondering if that can be identified this evening. But my concern with respect to that is that you all know that intersection. Fine and dandy if the valet is going to be making a right turn and going someplace. My concern is that when somebody comes to pick up their car, what if they live on the west side of town and they try to make a left turn out of the spot where they've picked up their car, cut across 2 lanes of traffic to go under the bridge? You can't force those people to make a right turn unless you're going to have some sort of an ordinance that says if you're parked in that spot or you're valeted in that spot, you can make a right turn only. So again, somebody who lives on Mountain Avenue, Midland Park, Wyckoff, who wants to go up Godwin Avenue or West Ridgewood Avenue could get in their car and decide, ooh, I want to shoot for the underpass, and you make a left turn and you cut right across 2 lanes of traffic. When I say 2 lanes of traffic, there's a lane of people who want to go right down Franklin Avenue, and there are people who want to go left. So I do agree with the council members who believe that this is somewhat a dangerous location to be offering valet. And again, I object to the notion that because we've done it for somebody in the past, we might have an obligation to do it for somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Boyd. Okay. Anyone else? Do we know the...
Yeah, Mr. Carlo, would you come up for a moment to the microphone? Thanks. And if you could tell us where it is that your valet are going to be parking the cars?
The valet will be parking...
Just speak into the microphone.
Sure. The valet will be parking right across the street, right across Franklin at what was Smith?
Ken Smith, okay.
Ken Smith, right? Mm-hmm. So they will be going straight. They will not be turning.
So,
but that doesn't address the previous question as to upon pickup, you know, when folks get their cars from the valet service, you know, if they're going to make a left-hand turn. I just know the valet folks will be going straight across Franklin into the Smith parking lot, so they will not be making a left-hand turn.
Can you find another place to have them park valet? That makes the situation a little bit more precarious if they go straight across. I mean, that's a really busy intersection. And they're going from the kind of the right side directly across. I mean, it would be okay if they were kind of in the middle lane to go across, but
yeah, no,
on the right.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess the best way for me to answer that is the valet service has an arrangement with the property owner there. Yeah. That's where they park the automobiles that are also valeted at Roots. So that's where they have a contractual spot, and I do not know if there's another location. I would have to, you know, find out from them. Now, I will say this. When I made the application and suggested that we use the 3 parallel spots that are closest to the corner of North Broad and Franklin, it was essentially an attempt to eliminate as few parking spots for the public as possible. So if you envision, I'm going to make this up, but let's just say that a parking spot is a horizontal spot, a parallel spot is 12 feet long, right? So through 3 spots there, 36 feet, and you've got that area to work with. if you were to take the equivalent footage, 36 feet, and you applied that to an area that had diagonal head-on parking, you're probably losing, I'm going to say 5 spots, maybe a 6th. I don't know. I'd have to, measure this. But just by sight, one would look at it and say, okay, well, wait a second. The least number of spots to eliminate from the public access to provide this valet would be the 3 parallel spots closest to the corner. So I don't have again, I can't answer your question tonight about can they put the car someplace else. I simply don't know. What I would say as an alternative is perhaps we could use spots, I guess you would say it would be further south on Broad Street, such that the cars upon leaving would have a more reasonable opportunity to go from the right lane to the left lane if need be, if they wanted to make a left, under the trestle. I suppose that's an option, but again, I was hoping, to have at the least impact possible on the parking that's, right, like, we're trying to help the situation as opposed to hurt it, so that's why I suggested, or I applied for the 3 parallel spots.
Can you also tell me about the, your patronage and the issues they may be having, I guess, with parking? Because, it sounds like valet is going to help you immensely, but just tell me a little bit about what's going on, at the busy times at your restaurant.
I suppose the best way I could characterize it is I've had numerous conversations with folks who've come in on, let's say, a Tuesday night, and they've said to me, I was planning to come to you on Saturday, but after, numerous laps of, the village and not being able to find a spot, we went to wherever else that was not in town. And I'll say this too.
Does that happen a lot?
It happens more than a Ridgewood restaurateur would like to hear. So it happens quite a bit. And I understand too, that this valet service, while it's something that we applied for and we're paying the permit for, there inevitably other businesses on Broad Street in particular, their customers will use it too. So I think it's there's a greater good than just the Steel Wheel Tavern. And I certainly don't want to create for dangerous.
Yeah, who might that be? I mean, the other customers.
Well, so this is not a free service.
Yeah.
So as a result, we're not. You can't be forced to walk into the Steel Wheel after you drop off your car.
Okay.
But I'm just envisioning, Mediterraneo, Esegidio, Finca. I mean, honestly, it could go, and this is true for the route situation too, right? They could go anywhere. One of the things I'm trying to do here, and I'm not going to mince words, I want people who are considering coming to the Steel Wheel Tavern to know that we understand that there's a parking challenge and that we're going to do our part in alleviating that. And I think that's a pretty significant olive branch to offer the general public. Plus I also think in general, just, it helps the village.
I think I would need to hear from our professionals again, because at the last meeting, it was said to us that they would be pulling out of those spots and making a right. They didn't know where cars were going, but they were coming out and making a right. So even then, I thought it was a bit precarious, but I would defer to our professionals because they said that would be okay. But I mean, this is a little bit different now because you're kind of pulling out into all of that traffic, and maybe after 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, when a lot of people are leaving, that might not be an issue, but 5, 6, 7 o'clock, that could be a challenge, because that really, there's a lot of stacking there. There's just a lot of traffic and pedestrians and people coming back from the train station.
We are talking about people who have picked up their cars from the valet service and are leaving to go home or where they're going correct? I just want to make sure that we have the...
Well, no, I'd be talking about parking the cars at Ken Smith, because we were told at the last meeting that, all right, say you're parked in one of the 3 spots along the curb. We were told they'd be making a right out of there, so you wouldn't have to worry about the other 2 lanes of traffic going straight, or most people making a left. So in my mind, that seemed to maybe work a little bit better than having to merge with traffic, but our engineering department obviously didn't seem to know that traffic was going to go straight instead of making a right, and I think that makes a big difference then in my decision.
Understood. So let me say this. That's an easy fix. I mean, not that it's my decision to make, but I can talk to the valet company, and they can make a right-hand turn and go around the block, get into the left lane, and however that would work, and, go across the street. I mean, the route can be changed. I don't have that problem. That's an easy one, I would say. The challenge, I believe, if I understood it correctly, is what do we do after the customer is back in their car and they, upon leaving, decide to make the left and go under the railroad trestle, right? I think that's, when the valet company gets the car, we can dictate to them what their route is to get to the parking lot. What I think we have a more difficult time doing is dealing with the customer afterwards, and whether they decide to make the left-hand turn or not.
Well, no, my bigger concern would be not so much Mr. Loving's concern, but early on when people are coming and the cars are parking, because now instead of kind of staying tight and making that right, you're veering off into traffic and making going straight. And again, there's just a lot of traffic there, and that's a time when the train station gets really busy, and it doesn't. I mean, I would have to hear from our professionals again, because this is a lot. This makes a big difference in my decision, because I was on the fence last week, but I figured, okay, a right's not that bad. They're not trying to go straight, or they're not trying to go left, and now you're here telling me that we're going straight. And again, that, to me, I would need to hear back from our people to see if they would feel that that's okay, because it doesn't seem like they knew that last week, I guess.
Yeah, the other thing, and I just want to point out that, Glenn, when you suggested that the spaces bagged could be up a ways, and that would allow more time, what we have in front of us is an ordinance that's very specific to individual parking spaces. So if we were to contemplate an alternative scenario, that would mean defeating this and then going back to start, because that couldn't be, we couldn't do this and then say, well, swap it for that. So it doesn't work that way. And just see if anyone has any other.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. So Steel Wheel made the application, but you're not responsible for the valet? Who's responsible for the valet?
Tri-State Elite Valet Service.
Well, he's responsible in the sense that he's hiring the valet.
So you hired them, you're going to pay them, you're going to manage them on behalf of that application, correct?
The valet company takes out the permit. So, but it is basically for Steel Wheel, but as he indicated, if others were to use it, they certainly could. So.
No, I know that, but so I'll just give a for instance. What happens if everybody starts using it and no one goes into Steel Wheel? Then what's the, who's managing them? I mean, are they?
Who's the oversight?
Who's the oversight?
Who's the oversight?
Yeah.
The valet company themselves, that they have managers on site managing, as far as where they go, where the customers go, you mean? Or as far as the
Well,
valet?
let's just say, I'll just give a for instance. Let's say it's agreed, that they're going to make the right only, and they start making the right and a quick left. Because that, you can get over the curb there once you turn, so then we have people turning left. Who would be responsible? RPD would?
They would enforce.
They would enforce.
But the manager on site for the valet company would be responsible as well, to make sure that the valet drivers, it's the same for Roots and for Park West, they're the ones who are responsible for their drivers. So if they're unlicensed, if they're driving recklessly, if they're making U-turns in the middle of the street, that, yes, that can all be enforced through our police department, but ultimately it goes back to the valet operator.
Right. So I guess, yeah, we have to hear from our professionals, because we were all under the impression they would only be making a right and that they would not ever impede any of the other traffic to the left.
Now, when we say they,
Meaning anybody, the person dropping their car off or the person getting back in their car to go home would always be making a right.
Well, I always,
understood. And I don't know the answer to this. I'm trying to picture them, you know, in my mind's eye now. Is the right lane a right-hand turn-only lane?
I believe it is. It can't be anything, it is. It is a right turn only lane.
Yes.
Sure it is.
Okay.
It's right
So
turn
then-
only.
And, and I have to say, it's a couple months ago, I guess, since I probably looked at the maps that, you know, I drew. So then clearly no one's going straight. Everyone's going right, right? Because if the right-hand lane is a right turn only lane, and that's
left
the
lane could
lane
go
that
straight or
you're,
left.
sorry?
The left lane could go straight or left.
The left lane could go straight or
Right.
left. So you'd have to be if you're in the right-hand lane, you have to make the right-hand turn. So the valet have to go around the block, get into the left lane, and presumably, unless they're not a law-abiding citizen, the customer upon leaving would also have to go around the block if they wanted to get under the trestle. So if it's a right-hand lane, right-hand turn only, I think those are your only options.
Legally.
Yeah, otherwise you would have to cut
Legally,
across the
yes.
right-hand lane to go straight, so that you're dropping off cars, and then
Right,
whatever
so-
people do whenever they get out, when they get their car.
So I
back, they
apologize,
go
I
somewhere else.
misunderstood you.
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
Right, that was my concern, because then you'd be cutting across that, right turn only, so you have a bunch of people stacked up who are making the right turn, and then you have a bunch of people
That's
stacked up
correct.
who are either going, most people aren't going straight, so they're going left, but that's the only option.
So back to
really.
the earlier question. The valet company, when they go straight, they're doing so out of the left-hand lane, not out of the right-hand
Well,
lane.
exactly, but what I'm saying is they're going from the curb, cutting across the right-hand lane, because here are the people going right, and then here are the people going straight, and then they get in that left-hand lane, and then they go straight. So they have to either wait until everybody makes a right-hand turn, and it clears out, and there's no traffic, or they try and scoot in, or however they're gonna do it. But they still have to cut across that lane they have to go from the parking spaces on the curb across the whole lane of people stacked up waiting to make the right turn, so they could get into the left lane, so they could go straight and then park the cars at Ken Smith.
Right, well,
And that's my concern.
I'm certainly no engineer, but this is what I would do. I would put up some cones between the right and left lane, such that once you're in the right lane, you're making a right, and when you're in the left lane, you're going straight or left. So that when you come out of the 3 spots that we have assigned for valet, there is no option. You can't make a left. In fact, I'll go a step further, because I thought this might come up. If I had a concern, it would be people deciding there's valet, and wanting to make a left across the double yellow line from heading southbound on Broad Street, and essentially bang a U-turn so they can, pull into the queue. I know it happens on Chestnut. I don't want to see it happen on Broad. I would suggest the same there. I would suggest, a handful of cones where it's quite obvious that you can't make this left from southbound on North Broad to northbound on North Broad into the valet spot. So I think as we kind of work through this, I think some of these concerns can be mitigated with a little, with some forethought like we're giving it right now. But if you can't, if you have cones and you can't cut across the right-hand turn lane, you're either driving over cones or you're making a right-hand turn.
Yeah, I mean, my other concern is that now we have this circuitous route to get to the Ken Smith lot. And it just adds, in my mind anyway, traffic, congestion, confusion. And whenever you have more traffic, more congestion, and confusion, you set up a difficult and dangerous situation. So my position on this, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, if everyone wants to consider tabling this right now until...
We have to defeat it this evening.
Fine, okay, all right, okay, fine.
Ma-
So,
Madam Mayor, may I comment on your concern, because I understand that? I would have the opposite view. We are alleviating that very same problem. If folks are going around the block that is created by North Broad, Franklin, Chestnut, and East Ridgewood Avenue, and they're doing that repeatedly in order to find a spot, when all they actually have to do is pull into the valet and get out of their cars, I think we're going to significantly decrease the amount of traffic going around said block. I think we're creating a situation to alleviate that very problem. Now, I know it seems like we don't have the right people here, you know, village engineers and so on, at the moment to say, hey, do a handful of, you know, traffic cones get the job done? To me, it would seem like they do, and maybe none of us are, you know, qualified to say that, but insofar as, you know, people might be making, you know, laps around town to find parking, I think this service is actually a remedy for that concern.
So Glenn, would you be amenable to looking at some of the angled parking in front of your restaurant, or even a little bit probably south of that, as opposed to those 3 spots?
I sense a trick question here. No, I'm kidding. But the reason I say that is I understand that, you know, the idea here is say yay or nay, and I know that if we say nay, I believe that if things sort of went according to schedule, that this service could be in play by July 3rd, or thereabouts, I think was a date that had been bandied about. Now, prime time is, you know, July and August, so I'd rather say, hey, let's not do that, and let's come up with a couple of, you know, easy fixes to the current plan. Otherwise, this is going to get, you know, we're going to be talking about, you know, September by the time, you know, we have the service, and the peak months, you know, in downtown Ridgewood are, you know, July and August. Those are big months for us. So I'd rather not stipulate to that.
And as he mentioned, and also as Chris Redishauser mentioned, by doing the angled spots, it's going to be more than 3.
I mean, like 5.
Yeah, it will. So we'll be taking up more spots.
Yeah, I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but I mean, that to me seems more manageable, at least to be able to get over into the center lane if you're going to use the Ken Smith parking lot. I'm just really worried about the people on the right lane going straight across.
Right. Well, you know what I don't know, and I don't know if any of us here do, but at some point, which is probably just about in front of the Steel Wheel Tavern, you make a decision which lane you're going in, because it's a single lane until right about where the steel wheel is. And at that point, you're making a decision, you're making a declaration to your fellow drivers. I'm making a right, or I'm not. So if you pull over to the right, and if you pull over to the right into one of the valet spots, you're essentially saying, I'm in a right-hand only turn lane. There's no turning back from that, right? So, of course we can't, you know, predict what people are going to do, but I think if we just sort of, you know, look at the situation, we would say, okay, you get to a certain point on North Broad where you're either making the declaration that you're turning right or parking, or you're going straight or left. I think those are, you know, it's basically one or the other. And I don't think really the options exist. So again, I would suggest, and I clearly don't have a civil engineering degree, but some cones in between the right-hand lane and the straight or left-hand lane would help the driver who was sort of confused, and I would think would, you know, essentially eliminate, you know, any confusion.
Just out of curiosity, I want to go back to a point you made earlier.
Yeah.
That the parking spaces at Kent Smith were procured by the valet company, not by Steel Wheel.
That's correct. Yes.
That's unusual. I mean, usually the restaurant will secure the parking spaces, no?
It depends. It depends honestly, because this is unusual because this valet is also the same one used by Roots. And so therefore Roots it's the same company, so they are already using Ken Smith. So that's why it's.
Which Roots is paying for, no?
Not for the valet operator license.
For the spaces?
For the spaces at Ken Smith,
Who's
that I
paying for
don't
that?
know I don't know that for a fact.
I
Yeah.
mean, just the way I see this, just, you want to get this done, but we have a couple of moving parts to this now. We have a suggestion about the angled spaces a little ways up, but that does not comport with this ordinance, so that doesn't work, and that means this gets defeated because we could not do that. We could not pass this and then assign those. It doesn't work that way. The other piece of it is then we get to whether or not we put cones in the middle and direct traffic this way or that way, and I don't know, for me personally, that, and I'm about pretty confident everybody might agree, that any of us would be comfortable making those types of decisions without having professionals here weighing in on this, telling us exactly how it would work, because I don't even know that you could put cones in the street as a permanent, like ballards or something, as a permanent traffic guide. I don't think it works that way. So I don't know about anyone else, but I'm right now more comfortable taking this up at a later date, even though it doesn't work for your scheduling. I think for us here, I'm sensing that it might make everyone else feel a bit more comfortable.
Well, just, if I may, I'm not advocating for the cones to be placed permanently. I think just during the hours of valet operation. Although there is precedent for cones to be placed permanently, like the ones that are essentially where Chestnut and East Ridgewood Avenue meet by the bank building that used to be Fish. Those cones are there all the time, so you can't make a left-hand turn. So it wouldn't be unprecedented to have permanent cones, but we don't need permanent cones. We just need cones for a handful of hours, so that people understand.
So Heather, if we were to defeat this tonight, how quickly could this be back on and us voting on it?
Well, if you need additional information and want to discuss it in public, it would have to be July 11th, and then it could be introduced it could be introduced that evening, but the earliest you could have a public hearing would be August 6th, I believe the date is. I'm sorry, it's August 1st. So then it would be 20 days, so August 21st, it would be effective if it were adopted. So.
Okay. So,
Well, my closing remarks.
you're entitled.
I would trust the village engineer and whoever else is has professional background in this to, decide how to handle it. I mean, if they haven't said if they've given us, reason to believe that this will work, I don't know why any of us would think that it can't be done safely.
Well, the issue is that they gave us reason to believe this would work if the valet was going right, because that's what he based the whole thing on, is they're going to be right next to the curb anyway, they're just going to make that right, so they're not going to have to cut into traffic or do any of that, and they said wherever they go, I don't know. And that's what I'm saying, now that we know they're going straight, they have to go from the curb and cut into that traffic, and that becomes the issue, so it's a little bit different than what was presented last week. So, and I think that's why everybody's saying now, wait a minute, this is...
Okay, now, and I hear your point clearly, but I think we've established that you cannot, from that right lane, go straight. Have we not?
Right.
But it's...
Right. So therefore, by definition, they're making a right-hand turn.
But it's really enticing to be right there and just be able to cut across as opposed to going around. If you're a valet, I just don't trust the situation. Unless you can find another place to park those cars, as opposed to Ken Smith, it just creates, my concern, it creates a really precarious situation, I think, for that particular intersection.
Okay, so So I'm clear, we're still concerned that the valet company is going to fail to turn right.
I think the concern is, just to restate that, I don't, we don't know what's in someone else's mind. We don't know whether or not they adhere to laws and safety and regulations, so we don't know who the drivers are, we don't know. Our concern is not specific drivers. Our concern is whether or not we're setting up a dangerous situation without having the appropriate input from professionals. And I think that we had input from our professionals that indicated the vehicles would be making a right, and maybe I misremember, I may or may not, but my understanding was that there was a parking lot that they were going to the right, that they would park somewhere down to the right. So we have two issues now. Somebody might cut across and just shoot in and go straight. Someone else might be adhere to rules. But no matter what, we have cars that are going to, if they do make the right, they have to now make other moves to get to that parking lot across the street. So I think that there's this whole circuitous route now that has occurred that I don't think any of us had anticipated. I mean, jump in, anybody.
We have the route also on the way back, because now you're coming out of Ken Smith Lot to return the car. You're not going to go straight and cut across a double yellow to give somebody back their car. You're going to have to make a left on Franklin, right on Chestnut, and go around the block again now to return the vehicle to the original spot. There's
a whole bunch of movements there that, I mean, you're a businessman, you gotta know all those extra movements can't be really great for the, an operation. It's I mean, personally, I'm not comfortable with this right now. I was very comfortable when I thought everyone was going to right and there was a parking lot to the right. That changed now. Okay, so.
Well, everyone does have to go right. I mean,
So
legally they have to go
at the
right.
beginning of the meeting, I made a comment in my council report that behaviors of drivers in town are not good behaviors. So in my mind, this is setting it up for bad behavior to happen because everybody's in a rush, and maybe not so for the valet, but definitely for the person picking the car up now. And we just looked, I have the traffic study there because citizen safety is going to be talking about the traffic study again. There is a solid white line, so no one can pass a solid white line. So if they were doing that, that would be obviously an illegal move, but there's already a solid white line there that nobody can cross. So you wouldn't need to put any type of bollard or cone there. But I think the behaviors that we've seen, and we saw some on Broad Street last weekend, could be some of the other reasons why we're hesitating on this, that they would want to just zip across to save time, especially if you have people queuing up. Otherwise, they're going to have to get in the car, drive around to drop the car, come back, get another one, around. And then to get the car back, same thing. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be efficient, safe, or make any sense. So it'd be almost easier to just have them pull into the Ken Smith lot. Like, what do you need the valet for then? The lot's there.
No, and it's a great point. It kind of occurred to me until it occurred to me before that if I were coming to your site and you had a sign that said steel wheel parking right there, or maybe a sign in the Ken Smith lot that said steel wheel parking.
Yeah, had an A-frame.
And you rented spaces that said steel wheel parking, then somebody would just drive across the street, park their car, and walk.
Crosswalk, because it's right there, yeah.
Use the crosswalk because, always use the crosswalk because it's right there. So it makes sense to me that maybe there's a different alternative to achieve,
Same thing.
the same thing. Is this valet company, are they operating elsewhere in the?
Roots.
But so it's the same valet?
Yeah.
Yes.
So essentially you're tagging onto theirs, or are they independent to you?
I don't know the answer to that question. I just know they have an arrangement with the owner/landlord of that parking
Oh,
lot.
so they're just
and
going
they
to
have-
set up shop right by you? Got it,
Yes.
got it, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I'm,
Okay, so it doesn't look, unfortunately, it doesn't look favorable. So what I just want to say is we can certainly meet with Mr. Carlo and our professionals before we come back to the July 11th meeting. We can discuss it again. In the meantime, possibly the valet wants to find a parking lot to the right, or if not, then possibly there's some other solutions we can come up with. I know it makes it difficult for you because that's your prime time, but again, as some of the council members just pointed out, perhaps it's just easier for there to be a sign at Steel Wheel saying Steel Wheel parking allocated at Ken Smith somehow, and then have the valet people over there to stack the cars or whatever needs to be done. It's a thought, but certainly, we can certainly bring it back July 11th. And in the meantime, we'll set up a meeting so that we can discuss it with the professionals, which will include Sergeant Chuck as the traffic control officer. Okay?
yeah,
Okay.
I think that's probably our best bet. So, what are we doing now?
Well, we have to see if anyone wants to, anyone else wants to speak.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay. So I'll make, you're done?
Yeah, I can be done. If I thought there was something I could say in the next minute or two that would change your mind, I would say it, but I coached hockey for 20 years and I'm reading the play. So.
All right, in that case, if nobody else out there, I'll move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Okay. Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton?
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3646 be adopted on second reading.
Defeated.
No, okay. I move that ordinance 3646 be defeated on second
caught
reading.
that.
Final
I caught that.
publication is required by law.
Second.
Hache?
Yes,
Yes vote is to
to defeat.
Seaton?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton?
Yes.
Okay. So we will set up that
See
meeting.
you in July.
And we'll discuss it again July 11th.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks a lot for your time. Have a good night.
All right.
Nope.
Okay, I move the clerk read ordinance 3647 by title on second reading, the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton?
Yes, will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3647?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 190 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood at Section 190-3 entitled Definitions, to add a new definition of blade signs, and at Section 190-122 entitled Signs, to create a new subsection at 190-122H10 establishing regulations for blade signs.
Public hearing is now open. Okay, I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton?
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3647 be adopted on second reading and final publication is required by law.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton?
Yes. I move the clerk read ordinance 3648 by title on second reading, the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton?
Yes, will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3648?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 172-6 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood entitled Nuisances Enumerated.
Public hearing is now open.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I believe I spoke about this when there was a work session to discuss the topics of bans, and I just read the rewrite of this ordinance, or read this ordinance and how it rewrites the code, and I'm just a little bit confused. Is the purpose of this to permit bands to play unchecked until 11 o'clock? Or is the purpose of this to include bands as among the nuisances? I know when this was first discussed at a work session, there was some concern that you wanted to allow people to hire bands without the fear that the band was going to be shut down and let them play until 11 o'clock. Now, Is that what's happening here?
Yes.
That people have come to you and say, I want to hire a band and I want to have it unchecked until 11? Or is this, the purpose of this to include bands among those things that could be considered a nuisance? So just was wondering if the attorney could clarify what this is all about.
Right, so this is to allow a band, somebody to hire a band, and without fear of having it shut down and up to a reasonable hour on a particular night, that's all.
That's based upon noise only, and the nuisance of noise. It could be shut down for other reasons.
Right, could be shut down for other reasons.
Could be shut down for other reasons, but that's just based upon noise. That was the purpose of this.
So as it stands now, prior to the passage of this, what's the situation with respect to bands? You can't hire a band?
No, you could hire a band, but you could, in theory, you could have a band play 1, 2 a.m. Or you could hire your band and they maybe could play till 2 a.m. without a problem. Or somebody else might hire a band and they might get shut down at 10 o'clock. So this is just to make some reasonable hour so that there's, on either side, that you know that you can go until 11 o'clock and with reason. It's within reason.
Okay, I guess I'm still not clear. So in the past, if there was a band playing next to me and it was 9 o'clock, and I found that the band was too loud, I could call the police and have the band shut down. Now, I will not be able to do that until 11 o'clock, is that what we're saying?
Well, I think what used to happen was that if it got to be too loud, depending upon the nature of it and the like, the police would stop by based upon a citizen's complaint. Now there is an absolute aspect to it where it puts 11 o'clock as a bewitching hour, where it's all got to be terminated and it's got to stop.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Hache,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3648 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Hache,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes. I move the clerk read ordinance 3649 by title on second reading. The public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Hache,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3649?
An ordinance adopting the Hudson Street redevelopment plan.
Okay. Due to publishing deadlines, the legal ad for this ordinance was published with the incorrect version of the ordinance. The reason the version of the ordinance was incorrect is due to the fact that some changes to the ordinance which were recommended by the planning board were not incorporated into the published version of the ordinance. The version of the ordinance given to the public and the village council on May 9, 2018 was the correct version of the ordinance with the changes recommended by the planning board. The correction notice for this ordinance was published in the record, but the person in the legal ad department neglected to include the corrected copy of the ordinance in the legal ad, even though it was sent for publication. The village attorney will summarize the changes to the ordinance as recommended by the planning board, which are not substantive.
Okay. I move that the...
Wait, Matt's gonna...
Okay. What you have in your packet tonight is the corrected version, but what we wanted to do was make sure that we explained to the public what the corrections were about, because both the corrected version and the other version were supposed to be published at the same time. There basically were three areas that needed to be corrected. The first one was in the first paragraph in the preamble to the ordinance, which really doesn't have the effect or the impact of what the redevelopment zone is about, but in any event, it was just really identifying the lots. The proper lot and block number proper lot and block numbers were in the original ordinance. However, for some reason, when it came back from the planning board, it read 13 parcels, and really it's only 2 parcels that comprise this particular area. The second point that needed clarification was on the third page of the ordinance, under the section number 2 called access, and the third bullet point there. The change in that one was something else that came down from the planning board. For some reason, it said that there was one pedestrian lobby, where there is actually 2 pedestrian lobbies, each of which shall provide a staircase access, but only one of which
will have the elevator. And I think it's just kind of an added aspect to it to make sure that everybody understands that there will be 2 pedestrian lobbies, one of which will have an elevator. And then the third point is on page 4, in paragraph number 5, when you're dealing with parking design standards. What had been done before was that in the original ordinance, there was a general description directly out of the ordinance, section 190-90 of our code. And what we did was just basically put in the dimensions of a parking stall, which is 8.5 feet by 18 feet. So that just was for clarification, and that was the last change.
Any questions or anyone? Okay.
I move that the amendments to ordinance 3649, as summarized by the village attorney, be adopted.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. The public hearing on ordinance 3649 as amended is now open. I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3649 as amended be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes.
Resolutions. The following resolutions, numbered 18-170 through 18-193, will be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the Village Council. They will be read by title only. Waive 4th of July vendor fees. Grant permission to fireworks company for fireworks display. Reject bids, school bus transportation. Title 59 approval, school bus transportation. Award contract, school bus transportation, summer day camp, daily transportation. Award contract, school bus transportation, summer day camp trips. Title 59 approval, vehicle emergency equipment, police, fire, and emergency services. Award contract, vehicle emergency equipment, police, fire, and emergency services. The not-to-exceed number in that title should be $35,000. Award contract under state contract, carpet replacement, police department. Award contract under state contract, carpet replacement, finance department, 3rd floor conference room, and village hall elevator. Award contract under state contract, 2018 Chevrolet Tahoe SUV for the fire department. Authorized change to professional services contract for Connolly and Hickey Historical Architects, Phase 1A Historical and Archaeological Study for the Zabriskie Shedler House and Shedler Park. Extend suspension of ordinance for certain illuminated signs in the Central Business District. Authorize encroachment agreement, 34 Woolsey Square. Authorize mailing of estimated 2018 third quarter tax bills. Authorize membership in U.S. Communities Government Purchasing Alliance and authorize execution of agreement. Authorize membership in Somerset County Cooperative Pricing System, number 2 SOCCP, and authorize execution of membership agreement. Authorize Director of Parks and Recreation to execute certain seasonal contracts. Authorize application to AARP Community Grant for Age-Friendly Ridgewood, and authorize execution of the agreement, pedestrian safety improvements. Acknowledge application for Bergen County Historic Preservation Grant for James Rose Center. Authorize settlement of claim, 386 Highview Terrace. Authorize execution of developers agreement, 240 Associates, and authorize execution of developers agreement, the Dayton. And the last one is approved 2018 to 2019 renewals of liquor licenses. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Hache?
Yes.
Seaton?
Yes.
Voigt?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes. Okay. With that, we'll go back to comments from the public. With that, we'll go back to comments from the public.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. During last week's work session, a number of members of the public came during the public comment to speak about Graydon Pool, and in particular expressed their concern about the inclement weather closing procedures, and also expressed their concern that there's no place where the public could go to determine whether the pool was in fact open or closed. I believe during the work session, the manager indicated that she would provide a report to the council at this meeting with respect to the inclement closing procedures and whether anything could be done about having a spot where the public could be notified. I heard no such report so far this evening, and I'm wondering if that report could be provided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Boyd. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All right, with that.
The only comment I do want to make is that right now what we will do is put it on the website. There may be a better way to do it. That was the plan within this week's time, but certainly we'll work on something and most likely send out an e-notice along with other items to indicate how residents can look to find out if there is a closing of grading pool due to inclement weather.
We're good? All right, so I guess we take a resolution and go into closed session?
Sure. Be resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on June 13th, 2018 at 8 p.m. or soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached. And the said closed session be held in the caucus room of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include potential litigation, health barn, COA, affordable housing, and Ridgewood water lawsuit. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 et sec. And be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks.